This is Max.
And this is Jhyrah. And this is Can You Handle the Heat? And, Max is just saying our most high-profile interviewee, our guest, I guess. We had Katie, we had Nick, we had Jaden, Laura, Maddie Mae, and Alden, and then recently Sonia and Zoya. But we have the APO goat of all goats. He's been around for a long time. Went to NT State in 1983 when they won the championship. Has been around the Brotherhood and APO ever since, and just state in general. Richard Stickney, glad to have you here.
Yeah, glad to be here. We've been talking about it for a while. I'm glad it finally happened.
Yeah, it's the group. What do they say? Like when the plans finally make out of the group chat.
Yeah,
this is like one of those moments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where you. I mean, I know you said you wanted to do a little introduction of yourself, so we can start there.
Okay, all right. So a little backstory on myself. If you've interviewed me for APO, you've probably heard some of this, but you may not have heard some of this. So, my parents grew up in Asheville. I was born there. Then they, at the time, Dad was still a student at State. He started in 1953 and took kind of a winding path in and out, one school or another, went in the service for a while, but he graduated in January 1962, about 8 months after I was born. And he got his degree in civil engineering and settled in Raleigh, worked for a small civil engineering firm for a long time. And was a major Wolfpack fan. Now, I won't say my parents were boosters. They couldn't afford to get a whole lot, but his boss was. And Dad's boss was a big-time booster. And, Mom and Dad got to go to games and do things like that. But the other side of me was that I was like a complete nerd as a kid.
Okay.
My mom and dad tell me that when I was a toddler, I was out chasing butterflies and picking four-leaf clovers and smelling flowers and totally obsessed with all living things, which has been the case for the entire 63 years of my life.
Yeah.
And I knew two things by the time I was about 12. One, that I would major in a biological science, and two, that I would be attending NC State University. The thing was that I was not all that big a sports fan.
Right.
I couldn't get it. I just said, what is all this fuss about? And then along came David Thompson and the 1974 NC State team. They won it all. My great regret from that was that I did not appreciate David Thompson for all that he was, because I was not that into sports. But that championship hooked me. And so I went to Sanderson High School in North Raleigh, graduated way up near the top of my class, and people were shocked when I told them I was going here. I got it. Like, you could have gotten into Harvard. You could have gotten into Duke, and you're going to State?
Absolutely.
And I said, it's
home.
in my backyard. It's got a world-class biology department, and it costs $400 a semester. What's not to like?
I wish
it's good. I was about to say, if it still costs $400, I'd be rich.
1979.
Yeah.
So I got here and got started, enjoyed it thoroughly, and I made a promise to myself that in the 4 years I was here, at least, I would attend every home men's basketball and football game.
Okay.
I did so until December of 1985.
Oh,
So
wow.
I went 2 years past that.
Okay. What was the reason that you couldn't go?
I was at an APO National Convention in
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good reason.
And I finally, it felt so weird.
Yeah.
That a game was going on in Reynolds Coliseum and I was not present. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. But after about a year, I got lonely and bored, and think, I got to join something. I don't want to do social fraternity. I want something that means more than just a club. And I saw, I don't know whether it was tunnel paintings, flyers, publicity of some kind.
Yeah.
And it just sounded like it was just what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am, 43 years later. Basically never separated.
Yeah.
What happened.
Well, how big was APO when you joined the?
So my pledge class was 10, and there were about 40 active brothers.
Okay.
And we were extremely close.
I'm sure, yeah.
It was like a 40, 50 person family. I mean,
Yeah.
we would all do like a service project together, and 80% of us would be there, and then we'd all pack this place to go out to dinner together. We tailgated football games. We sat together for basketball games. If there was a big game going on away, we would all pack into somebody's apartment and watch.
Yeah.
And we went through some ups and downs athletically. First football season, we won the ACC championship, but we also went 7-4 overall and didn't even get invited to a bowl.
Right, yeah, because back then you had to get like a
there
serious
were very few bowls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we lost 2 out-of-conference games by a total of 4 points.
Oh,
Dang.
man.
And we had, and unfortunately, lost to UNC as well.
Wow.
And,
That doesn't happen anymore, though.
it was and the next several football seasons, we'll say, well, I had fun tailgating.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
I mean, I feel like that's how I would say about like my 4 years or my 3 years here at State. I think the first year was probably our best because that was the year we beat Clemson, and I'd still say that it's probably like, I think as just like not even like as a student, but just as like in my life, it's like probably one of my best moments because I mean I'm someone who I enjoy partying and having fun with my friends, and so I love tailgates, and the tailgate was awesome because Clemson fans, they show out. So not only like we're like the parties like the day before on Friday good, but then like you get the Saturday and everyone's out there. It's full. It's jam packed.
And Clemson fans are some of the nicest.
Yeah, they were.
Of
Yeah,
schools
and
I've ever met.
And we get to the game, and honestly, I usually don't enjoy football games in person as much as I do at home because to me, football I feel like is very like 50-50 like gameplay, but then also commentation. But like, I mean, that Clemson State game, that's my sophomore year.
Okay, that was the one we won in overtime here.
Yeah, and it just kept going back and forth. And
I'll tell you a funny story about that one. I was watching at home, and one thing about me is that I don't go to games anymore because number one, I work on Saturdays, and 2, I can't afford it, and 3, I don't like the game atmosphere anymore. Too loud, too packed with advertising, I don't know. But I'll never forget that our kicker missed a field goal that would have won the game. I turned it off and went to go get something to eat. I was totally disgusted. I was like, here we effing go again. And so I followed it on my phone and found it. I didn't see the overtimes.
It was actually like, it was so, I remember this one girl was, she was like, it was like a sorority girl, and she was standing in front of me, and I was just making conversation with like people around me, and then like, they were about to leave, and I was like, you're going to leave a Clemson, like, NC State game? I was like, do you realize, like, how big of a game this is? And at the moment, I think, like, because it was still pretty early in the season, because I remember it was still being pretty hot, and I was like, if we win this game, like, I was like, we could, like unironically go to the national championship. And like, I mean, like, you know, I didn't think that we would, but like, I was like, if you want to go, like,
would still be open.
Yeah, like, this is how you could get there. And she was like, oh, I don't care, like, you know, whatever. And then, whatever, she, like, leaves, and I was like, the game goes on, and it's an amazing, like, every single, like, they're making a touchdown, and then we score a touchdown, and then, like, we're getting to stop, and, like, it was just, like, whatever, like, the best game that could happen, it was there.
Oh, yeah.
And
had it all.
I remember, like, at the end, like, I see her, and she's like, look, I didn't leave. But then, like, I remember when we were, like, rushing the field, it was so crazy, like people were jumping over, like, these, like the barrier, and it was, like, girls in, like, dresses. I'm like, and I was like, it's insane. Like, everyone's just, like, running, everyone's happy, like, everyone's, like, hugging each other, like, you know, dapping each other up, giving each other high fives. You know, the players are there, people recording videos with the players, and I'm just like in the moment, like, your heart's just beating, you're like, you know, in, like, euphoria.
I think if I recall correctly, my brother went. He goes to about half the games. He shares a season ticket with somebody.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to a little more of my backstory. So I ended up graduating with a bachelor's in biology and sort of started concentrating in botany. And my parents felt like, you know, a smart guy like me needs to get a doctorate. You know, I was sort of expected to do that. And I did like the teaching, but I wasn't sure about the research. So I went and I stayed here to get a master's in botany. And what normally takes 2 years took me 4, and partly because of my involvement with APO.
Right.
And partly because the botany department kind of let it happen. I kind of slacked off for a little while. I had a teaching assistantship, which I enjoyed. I finally, and during that time, in spring 1985, I was president of the chapter.
Okay, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. I was not one of the best ones in history, but part of it was because I had a very contentious exec board. There were a couple people on it who, if you said fire trucks were red, they would have argued that they were green just so that they could argue. I'll put it that way. It was a difficult semester, but I got a lot, you know, I still got a lot out of it. So let's go to 1990. So after that, my second graduation, I actually worked on campus for a couple of years. And, you know, I stayed involved with APO. I even took a class or two just, you know, to have fun with it and to stay active.
What were you doing on campus?
I was working in the biology department, teaching
Makes
labs
sense.
and, you know, setting up labs and doing things like that mostly. So finally, I took the next step and went to the University of Florida. And my parents' intention, now I know, was for me to get a doctorate in horticulture. Well, I'd never lived outside of Raleigh before, and here I am, just alone. And who do I go looking for first?
APO.
2 things. The Campus Episcopal Center, which I'm Episcopalian, and Tau Chapter of Alpha Phi Omega.
Yeah.
And I dived totally headfirst into both of them. And part of what got that motivated was, you probably haven't read, but 2 weeks after I moved to Gainesville, 5 students were murdered in apartments in the same zip code where I was living. The whole campus just went, like, was just living in fear.
Yeah.
And I talked to, APO ran an information booth on campus, and I went over there and started talking to people. And then the Episcopal Chapel kind of supported me. They said, you know, I was living out in an apartment on the edge of town, and they were like, they didn't even know me, and they were inviting me to, like, come sleep on my floor, their floor, if I felt.
Yeah.
And so I bonded very quickly within a couple of weeks. And the chapter